welcome back to our series on how to play the bassoon. Today we're going to be talking about musicality. Now, musicality is a very abstract concept that is extremely subjective. One thing that sounds good to one person may not sound good to another person. For this reason, often when people talk about musicality, they talk about it very generally, as in, make this more musical, or just make this sound prettier. And oftentimes we won't really be told how we can make it sound more musical or how we can make it sound prettier. So in this video, I want to give you specific tools you can use to make your music sound more musical. Let's start by talking about our four main dynamics, which are piano, mezzo forte, and forte. Now, in Italian, piano means quiet, and forte means loud, while mezzo means moderately. So, if we were to translate these, what they mean are quiet, moderately loud, and then loud. So if I play at these dynamics in order, it'll sound something like this. So each of these dynamics is a very even step change in our volume. Now, other than these four main dynamics, we can sometimes get pianissimo, fortissimo, or even more than that, pianissimo or fortissimo. And these are denoted by an increasing number of letters, either P or F. Now, pianissimo, for all intents and purposes, we will consider the quietest we can play. So pianissimo will be something like this. And then fortissimo, we will consider the loudest we can play. However, there's a caveat. We should only play as loud as we can play with beautiful tone. Now, every piece may have a different range of dynamics. Some may range from pianissimo, which would be 5 pianos, I think, to maybe only forte, in which case we would need to treat that pianissimo as our quietest that we can play, and that forte as the loudest we can play. So we need to adapt our volume range to the volume range that is presented in our piece. The natural follow-up to talking about dynamics is talking about crescendos and decrescendos. Now, for a crescendo, in general what this means is we play soft to loud, and a decrescendo is loud to soft. So I'll do a crescendo first. And then I'll play a decrescendo. One thing that is important to note is that we want to be able to crescendo from any dynamic to any other dynamic, and decrescendo from any dynamic to any other dynamic, provided they're in the right order. So what I mean by that is we won't always be crescendoing from piano to forte. Sometimes we'll be crescendoing from piano to mezzo piano, and sometimes we'll be crescendoing from forte to fortissimo. So for example, or decrescendos are much the same. In general, we will be going from loud to soft, but we need to be able to go from any louder dynamic to any softer dynamic, which includes going from fortissimo to mezzo forte, or piano to pianissimo. Or Now, on the other side of the coin, we have our time and tempo changes. The first of which will be the accelerando, which simply means to get faster. So if I'm going to demonstrate with eighth notes. The opposite of this would be a retardando, which means to get slower. Now, in general, when playing a piece of music, we will have accelerandos and retardandos when the overall tempo of the piece is changing. So we may go from, for example, 60 beats per minute, and then we'll do an accelerando all the way up to 70 beats per minute, and the rest of the piece will continue at 70 beats per minute. Same with a retardando. We might start at 70 and then retardando to 60. However, when talking about musicality, we don't want to change the overall tempo of the piece usually. And the way we do this is called rubato. Now for rubato, what we're going to do is we're going to, well, it literally means robbing. So what we're going to do is we're going to rob some notes of their length and give that extra length to other notes. And in doing this specifically, we can mess around with time a little bit while maintaining a steady tempo throughout the piece. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate rubato right now, simply because it wouldn't sound any different from what I had just played. However, in our next video, when we go over the etude more in depth, I will show you some specific places where we can use rubato to make it sound more musical. Now I want to talk about vibrato. Now this is something that is a little bit of an advanced topic, since using vibrato requires a very good foundation of steady tone and good support. However, if you're feeling ready, then I encourage you to certainly try. However, if not, don't worry, there's plenty of time to learn. So the main idea behind vibrato is that we're going to vary our intensity while we play a note. Now, I know that doesn't make much sense while I'm saying it, so I'm going to demonstrate it right now. You'll notice that it sort of sounds a little wavy, or vibrating. Now, this is, contrast this with a steady tone. So, to actually do vibrato, to carry this action out, there are two ways to do this. There is what's called lip vibrato, which means we'll vary the pressure of our embouchure to create this effect. Or we have airstream vibrato, which is where we vary the intensity of our air to create the vibrato effect. Now, for me personally, I prefer the airstream vibrato, but you should do whatever works best for you. So to do the airstream vibrato, what we're going to do is I'm going to breathe out with more intensity and less intensity at a very quick interval. However, to practice this, you should start slow and slowly work up your way to get faster vibrato. So. Again, if you can't do this right away, don't worry. It is quite the advanced topic. I just wanted to introduce it for those of you who may be ready for it. Last but not least, I want to talk about contrast. Now, what I mean by this is oftentimes when we play something, we will repeat a passage twice or even more times. If we play this the same way both times, it'll be pretty boring. For example, to make this a little more musical, what we can do is change it up the second time. We'll just play it differently. It doesn't matter how you play it differently, so long as it is different, and it makes sense. So the first time I played it very loud and full, and the second time I played it a little softer and a little slower. So using methods like these, we can add a lot of character to something just by adding contrast to repeated passages. Alright, now that we have all of our tools in our musicality toolbox, so to speak, we will be talking about how and when to use them in our next video, going more in depth into our etude. Hope to see you there. Bum, bum, bum.